Hola clase, we're going to get started with making comparisons. So we are in your textbook on page 53. So go ahead and take it open it up and take notes. So you need to be able to present these in class just to be accountable and make sure that you watch the video. But the notes are really for your own purpose, all right? So they need to serve you as you study, as you learn, all right? So we're going to get started here, and I'm going to go pointing things out. I'm going to make the screen a little bit smaller. I'm hoping you can still see it because I have some different things I'm going to go filling in, and jot them down as you need to. I'm hoping you will make more notes than what you can already see here. So the recuerda section, the little box says, do you remember? So you already know several ways of comparing different things. So let's go ahead and review them. The first one we're going to look at is más plus the adjective plus que, more, adjective, than. My song is prettier than your song, all right? So in English we don't say more pretty, right? But that's what you're going to do in Spanish. So I'm going to say, mi canción es más bonita que tu canción. If I wanted to say then yours, instead of saying then your song, then I would take out the song at the end and I would say, mi canción es más bonita que la tuya, than yours. Literally than the yours, all right? So that's review, if you didn't remember that. All right, there it is. And one more example for más plus the adjective plus que. The LCS team is bigger than the Webster team. Any ideas? Remember how to say team? We will say el equipo de LCS, we'll keep it the same, es más grande que el equipo de Webster. All right, let me scroll out just a little bit so we can see that all together. So notice there, our adjective, we have más, and then our adjective is grande, que, más grande que el equipo. So we have the two teams, we mentioned them by name. Go back to the other one, my song is prettier, es más bonita que, there's our adjective, right? Another one we know is the opposite, is less than that. It can be the same adjective, than, or any other adjective for that matter. The musician is less talented. Oops, there it is. The musician is less talented than the singer. So we're going to say the musician, remember it? El músico es, we're going to say less. We're going to say menos talented, we say talentoso que el cantante. Hard to take, but here it is. Less talented than. There's our adjective. Menos talentoso que el cantante. Hope these are making sense. Let's go on to the next one. Mayor que is greater than. Menor que is less than. So these are a little bit more difficult because it's not talking about the number of people necessarily, but it infers it a little bit. Greater than. So we're going to say the tech club is greater than the chess club. It's a little ambiguous, but just stick with me for our example, all right? So we're going to say el club de, remember how to say this? Computadoras es mayor que el club de, remember chess? Ajedrez. All right, let me scroll over just a little bit. El club de computadoras es mayor que el club de ajedrez. All right, so there's our comparison, just greater than. If we wanted to say the opposite, we would change it up and we would say es menor que. It is less than. We could be talking about size. We could be talking about quality. It all depends on what it is that you want to say. I'm going to go ahead and undo it and leave it as greater, okay? Another one that we have is mejor que. Now this one is better than and worse than. Peor que. The guy dancer is better than the girl dancer. So we would say, for this example, we would say el bailarín es mejor que la bailarina. El bailarín es mejor que la bailarina. The last section is what we use to say that something is the most or the least. And there's two different ways to say that. When we have this one, we could say the noun more or less plus the adjective plus de. So we would say the young man is the most talented of the school. So our noun is the young man. And Spanish, young man, young guy, we would say el joven es, and then we have to put in the article. Es el más talented, we say, talentoso of the school, de la escuela. So here we have, all the way from here, we have the joven is the noun and is the most talented. And then we also need to include that they is the most talented of. The de is the of the school. If we wanted to say the least, we would change up más and we would just say menos. Es el menos talentoso de la escuela. That hurts, right? He's the least talented of the school. Okay, I'll leave it in positive. Let me redo that. There it is. Es el más talentoso de la escuela. The best and the worst. Now this one doesn't have an adjective. This one up here, it just says this is the best. So we're going to qualify the band. We're going to say the band is the worst of all New York State. All right? Hang with me. This is not very positive, all right? But I just thought I'd give it a little variety. So we're going to say the band is la banda. Es la peor. It's the worst. De, and then I'm going to say of all. So I would say de toda Nueva York. All right, so there it is the worst of. All right, does that make sense? Hopefully we are good. Right, again, write down your question, bring them to class. I'm going to go on to the next slide. All right, so this is where we start our new information. Hopefully that was a good review for you. And we're going to start off with as, and then again our adjective as. Tan plus adjective plus como. And we're going to say here, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Ignore the bottom part, all right? We're just going to focus in on this one. Swimming is as difficult as martial arts. So for this one, we would say, you have to keep the article in there. La natación, because you're talking in general terms, all right? La natación es as difficult, es tan, and then this is our adjective right here. Difícil como las artes marciales. La natación es tan difícil como las artes marciales. All right, so there we have those three pieces right in there. If we want to make it in the negative, it is not as difficult. And then we would just add in that, right? So I would say la natación, and then we just add in the no. No es tan difícil como las artes marciales. I think I noticed a typo up here. Did anybody notice that? Difícil. The accent goes over the second I. Difícil. Otherwise it would sound like difícil. Alright, so there it is. So we would just add in the it is not as difficult as. Alright? So we would add that in before. When we talk about something that we are not going to mention as I'm sorry. I totally skipped over these. The examples in your textbook. En mi club, levantar pesas es tan popular como correr. So in my club, lifting weights is as popular as running. And in the negative, when they're not equal, in the athletic club, en el club atlético, levantar pesas no es tan popular como correr. So in the athletic club, lifting weights is not as popular as running. So when we want to say something that we don't have an adjective for, we don't say maybe as pretty, as ugly, or whatever, but we still want to compare them, we're comparing most likely our numbers. And we say as much as. So I'm going to go for as much as, and this is tanto in the singular. There is as much food. I'm going to try to zoom out here a little bit. There is as much food for the photographers as there is for the singers. That's the singular. Food is not plural. Do you notice that? Food is in the singular. So that's why I'm going to use tanto in the singular also. And I'm going to say there is, and we use one word to say there is, and we say hay. Hay tanta comida. Notice gender of comida. It's la comida, right? That's why our gender over here changed. Instead of tanto, it's tanta. Hay tanta comida para los fotógrafos como para los cantantes. Does that make sense to you? Hay tanta comida, para los fotógrafos como para los cantantes. There is as much food for the photographers as there is for the singers. And so we have tanta, I'm going to go ahead and underline it, plus the noun. And all the way over here is the como. Because I have all of this qualifying when I wrote in for the photographers. So that's my qualifier right in there. There is as much food for the photographers as there is for the singers. If I wanted to make it a little bit shorter, I could have said there is as much food as there are drinks. Hay tanta comida como refrescos. So let me write that in. I'm going to put it over here. There is as much food as there is, and I'm going to say soda, okay, because that's a term we know pretty well. So I'm going to say hay tanta comida como refresco. And that's it. Pretty short and simple. So we have these in here. Now the terminology that we're talking about in this chapter, though, we're talking about photographers and singers and recording music. So our phrases are going to get a little bit longer, but don't make it more complicated than it has to be. Make sure you understand this right here. As much food as. Okay? As much, whatever noun it is you're comparing. When we're comparing something that is in the plural, though, we need to change tanto, and we have to add an S. Tantos. Again, check the gender, all right? So there are as many guy hockey players as there are girl players. And so I'm going to say there is, and there are. The same one. We marry them both, and we just put in I. There is or there are. They both need I. Hay tantos jugadores. Now, why did I do masculine there? Because I wrote in los jugadores. I could have said las jugadoras too. I would have put in tantas, right? So hay tantos jugadores de hockey como jugadoras. And I didn't mention hockey players again, right? I could have said hay tantos jugadores de hockey como jugadoras de hockey. It just makes it a little bit more redundant. So here is our as many. And then our noun, our players, as. There is our as. All right, so then we finished it up, and let's go ahead and watch our, we're going to watch our video. So here it is. I'm going to try to turn down the volume just a little bit. Let's go for it.
I'm faster than you are.
I agree. That is until you fall down.
Hey! In English, we make comparisons every day without even thinking about it. Same thing goes for Spanish. So let's get to learning about comparisons.
You've already learned basic comparisons. Más que, more than, and menos que, less than.
Para mí, la biología es más difícil que la geometría.
Creo que bailar es menos popular que correr.
Some commonly used comparisons are mayor que, older than, menor que, younger than, mejor que, better than, and peor que, worse than. Ella es mayor que nosotros. Somos menores que usted. Soy mejor que ustedes.
Now, if we're comparing two things that are the same, we can do it with tan plus an adjective plus como. Here's how to use it in a sentence.
Levantar pesas es tan divertido como correr.
Just insert the adjective in between tan and como. For instance, if Pedro is as hardworking as Susana, we'd say Pedro es tan trabajador como Susana.
We use tanto plus noun plus como when making comparisons of equality with nouns. But don't forget that tanto agrees in gender and number with the noun that follows it.
For example, if we are saying fish cost as much money as dogs, we would say, los peces cuestan tanto dinero como los perros. Now let's say she has as many dogs as Ana. Tiene tantos perros como Ana.
Now it's time to show me what you've learned with the quiz.
Complete the sentences with tan, tanto, tanta, tantos, or tantas.
Pedro es amable como Juan.
If you said tan, you're correct.
Alberto trabaja rápidamente como ellos.
Tan. Kudos.
Imelda tiene zapatos como ustedes.
That's right. It's tantos.
And last but not least, tú tienes tarea como Eugenio.
Tanta. You got it.
Alright, so there it is. In essence, we looked at, and what we're going to be practicing right now is done plus adjective. So whenever it's an adjective that goes in there, you need to use done. Whenever it's a noun, it's an object, it's a physical object, you use tanto. And if there's several things that you are talking about, you're talking about nouns, then you may need to make sure you add on that S right there. All right, so that's the only distinction, and that's when you do it where they're both comparisons. The adjective goes with the tan, and the noun goes with the tanto. All right, so that is it. I want you to go ahead and complete activity 10 along with your notes, and that's what I'm going to review for class. All right, so making comparisons on page 53, activity 10, as well as your notes, and please bring your questions ready to discuss for class. All right, so that is it. Have a good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.